Hello my dear friends, my name is Sanne and welcome back to another beauty video. Today I have another 3 looks on palette video for you, which are always my favorite videos to do because I can just sit down and be creative and try out new makeup. And today I'm gonna be trying out the new Max & More Wildflowers palette. It's not completely new, I'm pretty sure it has been out for a few months already, but it took a long time to actually get in the Action stores around me. And then I ended up not buying it, and then I got it for my birthday, and I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and play with it yet. So we're doing it now. I have still seen this one in Action stores in the Netherlands, like last week still even. And there was still quite a few left, even in bigger cities that I went to. So I'm pretty sure you can still get this one. So I think it would be fun to play with this palette today, also because it's such a spring vibes palette. And I am really just so done with winter and I need it to be spring, so I think playing with a spring themed palette would be good for me right now. Let's talk about this palette first a tiny bit before we get into the looks. Like I said, this is the Max & More Wildflowers palette. It's one of the many bigger palettes in the Max & More range. I have 3 of them in total, but I've seen like 6 or 7 different ones over the past few years already. You can find them in Action stores, but they are always available for a limited amount of time. I feel like this one has been in stores the longest, but maybe people don't find it that interesting, I don't know. But yeah, these Max & More palettes can be a bit annoying to get a hold of sometimes. Like as soon as I see some on the website, I usually save them and I'm like, I need to go to the Action, I need to find them, and then they won't be in my Action for weeks or sometimes months. And then they're suddenly available, but only for a short amount of time. So it really takes me going to the Action at least once a month to see if these palettes are already in store. So it is a bit annoying, but also these are very, very, very affordable. I don't have my phone with me right now, so I can't tell you the exact price, but I'm pretty sure they're around like 5 or 6 euros. So yeah, this is like number whatever in the Max & More eyeshadow range. I really like these palettes, like the size of them and the feel, and they're nice and sturdy, and I like the look of them. And this one really intrigued me with the color story because it has some really fun shades in it. So it mostly has a lot of neutrals and browns, which you know I'm not the biggest fan of. I just don't tend to wear neutrals that often. I like to choose color most of the time, but also it has some great pops of color in there, like the pinks over here, the greens, and these amazingly looking beautiful, almost like periwinkle light blues. They look really, really cool, so I think you can do some really cool things with this. So there's 21 shades in total, a great mix between shimmers and mattes. I have all the swatches up on the screen for you now, so you can already take a little look at them. I must say that the matte light blue was extremely disappointing as a swatch, and it's already creating hard pan, so I am really curious to see how that performs on the eye when I'm actually using an eyeshadow primer and whatever. Besides that shade, there aren't really any other shades that really jumped out to me in a good or bad way from the swatches. They all seem pretty decent, so I'm just really excited to play with them. The palette is also completely vegan and cruelty free, so that's good as well. And we're just gonna test it out and play with it today and see what it can do. So I'm gonna do 3 different looks, of course. 2 of them are gonna be more neutral leaning, maybe with a pop of color here and there, and a bit more simple as well. And one will be a bit more creative and colorful and a bit more over the top. So we're gonna basically try it all. We're just gonna get started on look number 1 and we'll see where we'll end up with the looks. So let's quickly jump into it. Okay, so I have my hair to the side and I'm just gonna start by priming my eyes, and I'm gonna use the same primer as always, which is the Makeup Academy eyeshadow primer. And we're just gonna spread that out across the lids. Make sure we have a nice base to work with. We're gonna start out with the most simple look I had in mind, and for that I'm diving into this cool toned neutral shade, which is called Grow. And I'm just gonna grab a fluffy blending brush, dip that in and see what happens, and blend it into the outer corner. Just gonna apply some first and then kind of blend it out. This look is gonna be really light because this is the deepest color we're gonna be using for this one. I expected it to be a tiny bit deeper than this, this, just because it would be on a wet base. I think this is nice for like really simple neutral daily wear. It's clinging a bit weirdly to the primer, turning a tiny bit patchy, but I feel like when you work it a tiny bit more, that goes away. Which is odd, because usually very light shades like this would just blend out very easily, not cause a lot of issues. But maybe the shade is just a tiny bit too light and it's almost like a pastel formula, and that's why it functions a tiny bit less, I guess. But it's still a nice shade and it's on there. It looks nice. Then we're gonna go into the next matte shade, which will be this blue, which I said I'm very curious about because the swatch was so terrible. And this is the absolutely most beautiful color blue I've ever seen, so I want it to be perfect. And I want it to be so nice. And I feel like I'm gonna be disappointed. That's basically white, but also a really not pigmented white. This is taking a lot of layering to even get this color, and there is no blue in this at all. I am a bit disappointed, to be honest, because this is the color that drew me into this palette, just because it's such a cool periwinkle type pastel blue. I don't have anything like this in my collection. This isn't really what I was hoping for. Just too bad, and also a bit sad that this is the first two shadows I'm using. I'm pretty sure the rest of the shadows will be great. I think just Maximore needs to work on their pastel formula, because this is not it. It's like I'm just applying white powder with a bit of a cool toned undertone to it. Then we're gonna get into another matte. I'm gonna get into this shade called Seeds. The previous shade was called Blue Sky, by the way. I'm pretty sure I didn't mention that. But I'm just gonna blend this underneath the eye. See if that does anything. Because I feel like this shade is just a tiny bit deeper than my skin tone. So I don't know if it would really show up or not. When you look closely, you can see a difference. And then to make sure it's blended and maybe a bit lighter, I'm going into this shade called Lover. And I'm gonna be blending that with a more fluffy brush. And I'm gonna blend it along the edge. Pretty sure that doesn't really do anything, but it's mainly just because I want to use nearly every single shade. And like I said, I really do not understand the use of this many beiges in a palette. I just don't. I also don't like this, the previous shade, Seeds. It doesn't do anything. So I'm just gonna go into Grow again. I'm just going back into Grow and just dragging that underneath the eye, because I just don't like the way Seeds looks underneath my eye. Yeah, that was way too much work for the fact that I have absolutely barely anything on my eyes right now. So I think it's time to move on to shimmers, just so we can hopefully rescue this look a tiny bit. So I'm first going into Floret, which is one of these beiges again, which I'm pretty sure will do nothing, but again, I just want to try and use all of them. And I'm just gonna apply that over here on the lower lash line. It's a bit shimmer. It's more of like a satin shade, I would say. It's not really a shimmer. It's more to brighten up that inner corner, I guess. And then we're gonna go into this shade, which is Daisy, which is one of the few cool toned shimmers, I guess. A bit pinky toned. I'm just gonna apply that on the center of the lid, moving a bit inwards. And as always, the Maximore shimmers are absolutely great. They're really creamy, they apply really easily. And then we'll get into the star of the show, hopefully, which is Mesmerized, this amazing blue shimmer, which I hope will absolutely transform this look. Fingers crossed. I'm just gonna apply that on the inner corner of the lid. Okay, so I guess I'm just applying this shade literally everywhere, because this is the only one who will maybe rescue this. And I feel like this shimmer just, it needed so much more company. Like the matte that is supposed to accompany it is just so sad, I guess, that it just makes this shimmer not pop as much as it should have. because I think this is actually like a really nice shimmer. It's a bit of a soft blue base and then a beautiful blue sheen to it, and it's not very sparkly, it's more sheeny, but I like that sometimes. And I'm just dragging this literally everywhere because I feel like this is the only interesting thing about the look. Okay, so it's not really a very positive start to the video, but I'm sure the other looks will be a lot better because Max & More's formula for deeper shades is just a lot better. They really need to work on their pastel formula because it's not really it. I do really like the blue shimmer, and the other shimmer is very pretty as well. It just was not able to rescue this look. The blue shimmer, maybe? So I'm just gonna finish up this look the way I want to, and then I'll be right back with you with the entire look. Okay, I am back with the finished look. I ended up adding some very subtle lashes and a lovely eye pencil. This is a colored eyeliner by Max & More in the shade Girl Boss, which I felt like fit the shimmer the best. And while I do feel nice in this look and I wouldn't mind going out like this, like it's not ugly, it's still fine. I'm just a bit disappointed in the way the shadows performed. They're just not up to the standard I have for Max & More, which is technically not very high since it is a very, very affordable brand, and sometimes you just can't expect too much from such price ranges. But up until now I've only had great experiences with Max & More, so it's just a tiny bit disappointing. Like, I might as well just have put that shimmer over my entire eyelid, added the eyeliner, and then I would have been done, and it also would have looked fun. I just don't like the way the shadows performed. They're boring, basic, they don't really show up. Okay, so we have tried 7 out of the 21 shades in this palette, of which I basically only really liked 1. Maybe 2 if we're being generous. So not really the nicest way to start this video, but hopefully the next few looks will be better and my mind will be turned about this palette. I am very excited to try out this shimmer on top of some other shades though and just see what happens, because it is a really nice shimmer. I really like the blue tone in it. So yeah, this is look number 1 done. Let's quickly get into look number 2. Okay, I have primed my eyes, so I'm ready to get started, and for this look I want to be a bit more creative and fun with all the shades. So I have an idea, I'm gonna try to make it work, but we'll see. I am first gonna get into this deep matte purple beautiful shade called Young Love. I'm gonna grab a flat brush and I'm gonna draw a flower, I guess. And we're just gonna make sure the edges are nice and clean and deep. And then we're blending it a tiny bit inwards, not too much yet. We will go in with some different shades. Okay, so we have the shape going on both sides. It is a bit difficult to get like even and symmetrical, but I don't really mind. Next I'm gonna use a flat but fluffy brush and I'm gonna get into the lighter pink shade called Soft Pink. And I'm just gonna blend that on top of that deeper pink, going inwards. And we're just making sure we have some depth going on in these flower petals. I'm really focused on this. I want to go into the shade Spring, which is one of the beige shades, but it has more of a pinky tone to it. It's this one. Just so we can lighten up those leaves a tiny bit. Add some interest to the look, you know. I feel like I'm doing quite a creative look in a way that you would usually not really use these shadows. But still, even in this capacity, they blend very nicely. I'm liking these shadows so far. I feel like with these 3 you can create a very, very cute just pink look. And then I'm gonna do something wild that will hopefully not ruin all of this. I'm gonna go into this really deep shimmer called Wildflowers. And just applying that to the center as if that were like the center of the flower, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to create like a center moment, and then I'm gonna blend that out a bit towards that soft pink shimmer a bit. And I think this shade is really nice, but it's just a bit difficult to combine with the other shades in the palette because I feel like there isn't really a shade that is this deep that would really match well with this deep shimmer. Just gonna put the lighter shade on top of it because I feel like it's just too dark. I think this is just a difficult shade to combine. It's really nice, but I don't think it fits with the rest of the palette. I feel like that just really ruined this look. So I'm just layering that lighter shade on top of it to make it better, hopefully. Okay, I guess that's it. I don't like that purple with the rest of the look or the rest of the eyeshadows, so that's really too bad. And now we're gonna be even more creative, and I'm going into this green shade called Botanic. And of course, I'm pretty sure you already guessed it, I'm gonna use that to create flower leaves. Like the leaves, not the petals. Because these are gonna be a tiny bit more pointy. I know we're going all out. It's a lot different from the previous look. I find it a bit too bad that there's only one proper green in this palette. It's a bit of a muddy tone. It's not like a bright deep green, but because it's so deep, it just makes it a bit hard to combine with other things, especially because it's the only green. So you'd have to combine it with browns or maybe pink, but I feel like the color story of this palette on the first glance looks absolutely wonderful. But once you start actually using it, you realize that it doesn't always work very well together. I feel like I look like a clown. I don't really like it. I feel like on this side I should just do not the petals, but the normal. We'll do that on the other side. So for this side, I'm gonna go into that same shade, Botanic, but I'm just gonna blend it underneath the eye. And I'm gonna make it a bit rounded as if it's a halo eye. Just feel like that will work way better. It's a bit of a grayish green, and I don't really like that. It blends away a bit of the green and it starts to look just grey, so that's a bit too bad. But now that we've applied that green, this side is so much nicer. This is, I don't know why I did that. On the drawing it looked good. And I'm going into Grassland, which is the blue toned shimmer green. I think that will match well with the purple. And I'm going on this side, I'm just gonna put it on top. On the other side, put that right in the center. And then put that same shade in the inner corner, lightly tapping. Don't want it to be too deep. Just want a slight green shimmer over there. So I think I've all the shadows down. This is more of what we're going for. So I'm just gonna fix this up as well. Fix some things about this so I actually will like this look. And then I'll be right back with you. Okay, I am back with the finished look. I must say, first of all, let's just pretend this lip doesn't exist. It isn't exactly what I had in mind. The issue I have is that the palette just does not have every single thing I need to create the looks I have in mind. Like, I'm missing some interesting shimmers over here. I'm missing some lighter, brighter greens because this is just only deep and dark on the bottom of my lid. I'm missing some intriguing inner corner highlights. Like, in general, the color story looks really nice, but it just does not work the way I want it to. The shadows so far, at least these shadows, work a lot better than the shadows I used in the previous look, so at least that's good. But I don't know, the palette is missing some things in total, I feel like. The shadows that are in there so far, at least these ones are good, but they just needed some extra, you know? So that's a bit too bad. This is the look finished. We have used a lot of shades from the palette already, so we'll use all the rest of them in look number 3. So for the final look, I'm gonna try to do a fun mix of shimmers and mattes and see what we can do with that. And of course we're going into most of the brown shades over here because we haven't had those yet. So first I'm going into the shade Bouquet, which is this brown shimmery one. And I don't know yet how to apply this, but I'm first gonna go in with a bit of a stiff brush. And I'm gonna try to use that to create a bit of a wing. Even with a fluffy brush, this one applies pretty well. That's a really cute shimmer actually. I'm just trying to create a bit of a fluffy blended wing. And this shimmer definitely applies just fine with a fluffy brush, so I'm very impressed by that. And then I'm gonna work from that a little bit more, so I'm going into this shimmery shade over here called Poppy. Doing the same thing, going in with a slight fluffy brush and just moving that along that edge of the shade that we just applied. But I like these shimmers so far. These are nice. Then I'm gonna go into this deep matte brown. This is called Magical. And I'm dragging that down from that wing onto my lower lash line. Stop about halfway there. Really trying to make some sort of smoky brown wing moment with loads of different shades. And then for the lower lash line, I'm going into this shade called Wilderness. And I'm just gonna apply that over here next to that other matte brown we just applied. I think that matches very well, creates a bit of a two-tone look. I could stop with something like this, like blend out that wing a tiny bit more and then we're done. But we're going on. Then we're going into this shade called Vivid, which looks like an even brighter orangey brown than the one we just applied. And we're gonna use that from that shimmer shade in the crease, kinda. And then we'll blend it upwards into that crease. That blends quite easily actually. And we're gonna go into the next shimmer, which is this golden one called Buttercup. And we're gonna apply that in like that empty space we have going on. Then we can use the shade Lover, which is a really pale beige shade, to kind of blend it out a bit, help blend it a bit. I really like the shimmers. And now we have that lovely smoky moment done. We're gonna get into the final shade, which is this one called Bee. Just gonna use my fingies. I'm gonna use that as an inner corner moment. It's a really lovely golden shimmer, a bit orangey. I like it. And now we have something like this. So I'm just gonna copy that on the other eye, add everything that I want to add to the rest of the look, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, I am back with the finished look. I think this look is my favorite out of the three, just because those other two looks just weren't doing what I wanted them to. And at least this one, it has the sparkle, it has the shine, it has the blend, it has everything I need. So yes, again, just the brownish neutral shades that Maximore makes. Amazing, perfect, love them. I've also already been wearing this for like an hour, and sometimes with shimmers I already get a lot of creasing by then, but right now I'm not seeing anything, so great. So yeah, let's quickly talk about this palette for a tiny bit, my final review. I must say this is definitely not one of my favorite out of those Maximore palettes. I have 3 in total. This one I'm a bit disappointed by. Like, this look makes me really happy. I look nice, I look great. The shades are pigmented, they are easily blendable. The shimmers are lovely and sparkly and they apply so well even with a fluffy brush. Yes, this look great. These shadows, these last 3 shadows, amazing. The shimmers in this in general are great. They're very metallic-y and not really shimmery or sparkly, so that needs to be your vibe. If it isn't, and this palette isn't for you. But the mattes, I just want to talk about the mattes, because some of them, great. Others, not so. I mean, we've all seen this one. That was a disappointment. And the color story is just a tiny bit chaotic. The brown shades, they're great. Like, we have a really deep brown that matches with the deepest shimmer, and then we go a bit lighter with mattes and shimmers, so you can match that. That's great. But with the other shades, for example the pink shades, the deepest shimmer is deeper than the deepest matte, so that doesn't really match. The greens, we only have 1 green matte and it's really dark, and it almost turns a bit grayish on the skin, so it's not like a really nice rich green, so it looks a bit weird with the shimmers, and then you don't really have anything to match it with while it's so dark. It's the color story just leaves me wanting more. Like, why did we need 4 different beige shades? We could have just gotten rid of a few of those, added in a light green matte and a light pink shimmer, for example. And then I already would have loved this palette so much more than I do right now, because then I would have combined it so much more easily. I do think I can combine this palette very well with my other shades and especially my single shimmers, but I just like for a palette to also be used as just a palette, and if this look is the only one I can get out of it that really works, it makes me a tiny bit sad. So yeah, most of the formulas are great as always, except for like the really special shades, the blue ones. They're not really it. But besides that, all the formulas are great. Just the color story doesn't exactly work very well. I think that is gonna be my main critique of this palette. It just leaves me wanting a tiny bit more, like 2 or 3 different shades more. Then I think I would have been satisfied. Right now, if I think of a look that I want to do, especially if I think about the greens or the pinks or the blues, I just know I'm gonna have to combine it with some other palettes or other shimmers that I own, and that I can't really get it out of just this palette. So that makes me a tiny bit sad, but that's the way it goes, I guess. I think that is my final review of this palette. The formula is good as always, it's solid, it's the Maximore formula that we all know and love, but the color story is just not as good as other palettes of them. So I maybe would hold out for a different palette, or if you're really into shades like these, like the orangey browns, this could be good. But I wouldn't necessarily invest in this palette if you want the blues or the pinks or the greens. You can get that in other palettes as well that are just as affordable, so I would maybe go for that then. So yeah, and that is my 3 looks and review of the Maximore Wildflowers palette. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of all the looks I did. What you think of the palette, the color story. Would you buy it? Would you use it? How would you use it? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. If you want to see even more from me, my blog, my socials, and my gaming channel, and everything else you need to know about me is linked down below, so you can check that out as well. And that's gonna be it for me today. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!